What's up, everybody? I'm Blessed and Free. Welcome back to another episode of DOC TV. So a lot of times I bring people on this channel that have been to prison. Today's a little bit different. I know a lot of people that watch these YouTube videos have dealt with a lot of trauma in their life, depression, and, just shit that goes on in everyday life that we all go through. Today's guest, though, is a little bit different. She's got a crazy story, so we're going to get into it. If you're new and you're tuning in for the first time, go ahead and do me a solid. Just hit that subscribe button and turn your post notifications on. So for the people that don't know who you are, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself? Just tell them your name, who you are, and where you're from.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Magana. I have a YouTube channel, Convicted Hearts, Jen Magana, and I am from Salinas, California.
All right, that's what's up. So what's your YouTube channel all about?
It's basically sort of something I did out of trying to come out of my own trauma as a therapeutic thing. And I really sort of want to be like an encouragement to others who have been through things, maybe not similar to mine, but somewhat similar to what I've been through, and just encourage people. I have some, true life stories, some prison stories as far as being a relative to someone who's incarcerated. And I sort of combine all those things and go from there.
I kind of want to just jump into the story because I think let's just get into it. So your brother tried to murder your stepdad. Yes. And got an attempted murder on him. And then later down the line ended up killing your biological father.
Right. Yeah.
So what the fuck?
That's kind of where my mind has been for many years now. In 2005, actually, my brother shot our stepfather, who at the time was a detective with the local sheriff's department. So this, yeah.
Bro, this shit's like could be a movie.
That's what I've been told repeatedly. Yeah. I think it was a combination of many different substances and drugs at the time, combined with a very violent temper. And that's never a good. He
was a heavy drug addict then, is what you're saying?
Yeah. From different drugs, you know what I mean? Like from speed to steroids to opioids, and then combine that with being naturally violent and quite a large person. It didn't go well, obviously.
Yeah, there was actually a dude, wrestler, Chris Benoit, who did all the same shit that you're talking about, and he killed his whole family. So, all right, well, I want to talk about your case and what you went through. So when this started going on with your brother and your stepdad, was there a beef going on in the relationship?
There really wasn't a beef per se. The only beef I would say that was there is because of the fact that my brother was still in the home and actively using drugs. So clearly, if you live with a detective, you know what I mean, and you're spun out of your mind and doing those sort of things, it's not going to go well. So there was friction there. And, my mom at the time was trying to be the peacemaker. Here's her husband and here's her only son. And she's trying to buffer that. And it's not possible to do when you have someone spiraling out of control.
Yeah. And if he's doing speed, that's like a drug where you do crazy shit. So he's a detective and he's watching him destroy his life, and there's nothing really he can do about it. But is he trying to do shit about it? Is that where the tension came? Was he trying to be like, yo, straighten your life out, and he just wasn't having it?
I think for him, my stepfather's a very mellow, even toned person. I think the friction came from him pressuring, rightfully so, but going through my mom and saying, hey, this isn't working. We've got to do something. He's not coming out of it. He's getting worse. We need to address this. And that from there, the tension just started rising to a level of, where my brother, I think, started having hallucinations.
So what happened the night that he shot him? Were you in the home during all this too?
No, and listen to this. I was in my own home. I had 3 children at that time, a newborn baby. But my son, I think he was 6 years old at the time, he was wanting to stay the night with my parents. So he was in the home, and I just got a really bad feeling that night, and something overwhelming. I don't know if I'm a religious person. I feel like it was God warning me,
Yeah.
And I felt like I need to go pick up my son. I don't feel safe with him being there. My brother's been acting weird. So, and I didn't know at that point how far bad he was because I wasn't living at home. So I show up to get my son, and I just hear this loud pounding metal noise coming from the back of the house. And I walk back there to look, and my brother's just lifting weights like in a fury, just so
Like
aggressive.
high out of his mind.
Oh my gosh, it scared me to death. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm glad I came to get my son. We left. That was a Saturday night. The following Sunday morning, my stepfather was supposed to fill in for our family pastor and speak at the church that morning. And I got a phone call about 7 a.m. from our real dad. And our real dad was a correctional officer at Soledad State Prison at the time. My dad said, small town. And my dad says, hey, have you heard from your brother? I immediately knew something was wrong. My dad doesn't wake up early, and he certainly doesn't call me that early. And he's asking about my brother. And I was like, no, why? He said, your aunt is listening to the police scanner, and it just said my brother's name, shot his father. And she thought it was me.
So what went through your head? Like, did you know it was that serious?
I could have never imagined he would have done something to a family member. Now, I've seen him do some wild, crazy shit to other people.
Yeah.
But never to a family member.
So what happened to him after that? Obviously they arrested him, right?
Oh yeah. Well, after that, they had the house surrounded. The SWAT team was surrounding the house. The thing is, the SWAT team didn't realize my brother had already broke out of the house and was behind the SWAT team with a deer rifle aimed at them.
Oh my God, bro. He ain't even playing.
No, he wasn't. Thank God he didn't shoot that rifle at them. They found it months later, all rusted out from the rain. But he walked up into the acreage behind the property and was wandering around. And he eventually came down to a house and got a drink of water from a water hose. And that's where detectives found him and arrested him on the scene.
Yeah, he sounds like he was just high out of his mind. So Absolutely. He gets arrested. How much time did he get for that?
Well, a lot of people are not going to believe this either. My stepfather actually was in a coma, and he did survive. He has the worst injury was to his torso, but he does have a bullet behind his right eye still. And once he came out of his coma, talked to my mom, they stayed together and talked, and my stepfather wrote a letter on my brother's behalf, pleading for mercy.
Damn, that's crazy. You think he would have been the opposite, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And a lot of people were really angry with him, including his coworkers, and he has 2 children of his own. It caused a lot of friction in the family.
Yeah, that's not even his blood, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's I mean, damn, it sounds like though that's forgiveness, if you know what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't get much more forgiveness than that right there.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
How long did he get?
So my brother ended up getting, it wasn't an attempted murder charge, actually. It was a firearm charge and great bodily injury. And here in California, we have the 3 strikes law. So the judge struck a strike, and it ended up being like 1 strike. And he served a little over 7 years.
All right. So he did some time though. He didn't get off like scot-free or anything, but
no, he did some time in some, very serious prisons here in California.
All right. So do you know like any history on what he was like in prison, and like, was he affiliated? How did he do his time?
I don't really, I'm sure he was affiliated with something then. He was in a riot. I know that, and was in the hole one time for about 10 months straight.
But This is the crazy part, is he did 7 years and he did all that shit in prison, and then he got out, and then he kills your real dad.
Yes. He was out and on parole, and about 3 months off of parole, I find out he's murdered our father. Was
he high this time, or like what was the scenario?
So what I know from this, going back to that a little bit, he had started to sort of spiral out of control again. I, at that time, thought it had to do something with his mental health, long-term drug use. I thought it's something like that, right? And he also had an injury to his brain. He had fallen off a roof at a work site, about 2 stories. So he had become more aggressive at that point, and he tried harming my husband at the time. And I intervened, and obviously sort of had to cut ties because I didn't feel safe having my kids around my brother. So this caused issue because my brother lived with our real dad at the time while he was on parole. And I couldn't just show up at our dad's and hang out because my brother's there, right? I stayed away for a few months. And then there's one day that my mom tells me, you know, your brother and dad are going on a fishing trip. Your dad just bought a brand new travel trailer. He had just retired, you know, a little before that from the prison, and he wanted to travel. I thought that was kind of crazy because my brother wasn't really leaving the house much. He was not himself. He wasn't right, is what I can pretty much sum it up to. But then I thought, okay, maybe dad's trying to bring him out of his shell, get him away from the environment. So about 2, possibly 3 weeks went by. It's been a while. And I'm like, are they back yet? You know, I haven't heard from my dad. And I'd been calling his cell phone and he wasn't answering. So I started thinking maybe my dad's upset with me. You know, what are the last words we said? I kept trying to, you know, replay it in my mind. You know, what would he be upset with me about? Why isn't he answering me? Well, I eventually started going over there and knocking on the door. My dad's truck was in the driveway. The travel trailer was parked in front of the house. I also thought that was odd because my dad paid for a spot for that trailer to be in. So I knocked on the door. Nobody answered the first day. I went back the second day, knocked on the door, and my brother answered. He looked completely disheveled, just no shirt on. His pants were tied up with a rope. He had a wild look in his eye. I knew something was not right. And I really didn't know what to do. And I asked for our dad. He said our dad was on a walk, which could have been plausible because he was told he needed to start walking due to some heart issues. So I come back the next day. Same thing, dad's on a walk.
What?
At that point, I'm like, okay, I'm not going back home because I lived like another town away. So I went to a coffee shop that my dad would frequent, and I asked the people that worked there, hey, have you seen this guy? And showed them a picture from my phone. And the girl that worked there, she goes, you know what? We haven't seen him for a long time. And I just got an eerie feeling.
Damn, you felt that shit in your gut, huh?
Yes. You know that feeling where you feel like your stomach hits the floor?
Yeah, no, I know all about that feeling.
Yeah. So I went back to my dad's house, knocked on the door. At this point, I had already made up in my mind, if I don't see my dad's face, I have to call for a welfare check. I have to. Nobody else was willing to. My dad wasn't close to other people. He didn't let people in his life. So my brother answers the door. He said, oh, you're back. What do you want? I was like, was dad here? No, he's still on a walk. This is 3 hours later. I thought, no, there's no way. So I say, well, can I use the restroom? He says, yeah, go ahead. So I have to walk past 3 bedrooms and through the living room. As I'm doing that, I look to the left, which the third bedroom was my dad's office. And as I'm passing that door, the brand new chair my dad had just bought was turned over backwards. There was a lamp that was shattered on the floor. And in my mind, I know immediately that's a sign there's been an altercation. So knowing that, I have to try and play my cool, use the restroom, or pretend I did anyways, and then come out and pass my brother again to leave. I did that. When I got to the front door, I feel like in my heart, my brother knew that I knew something was wrong and I was going to have to do something. And I panicked. I thought, okay, is he going to strangle me? Is he going to lash out on me knowing I'm going to say something?
Yeah, you could be next.
Yeah. So out of fear, actually, and knowing that was probably the last time I would see him in person, not knowing the outcome, I kind of gave him a side hug and said, I love you. Just hoping that would maybe in his mindset throw him off and make him not want to hurt me, you know?
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, do you? And I said, yeah, of course. So I walked out, and when I walked out, I thought, that's really weird. You know, my dad is so frugal and this trailer's parked here. Why wouldn't he have taken it back to that spot he pays for? Plus the city would normally ticket something that large parked in that area. So I walk around the trailer to see if there's any tickets to move it. As I'm walking around the trailer and looking, I know, you know, the feeling you get when someone's watching you like that.
Yeah. That creepy feeling.
Yeah. So I look up and my brother's looking at me through the kitchen window while I'm walking around the trailer and looking in the windows.
Creepy.
And I just attribute that look to, you know, when a shark is about ready to attack and their eyes turn black.
Yeah, well, that's from meth too. He's paranoid, so he's like looking and he thinks everybody's out to get him. But for him, they really are, because he's killing people.
Yeah.
So
So
how did you find how was it found though that he, the body and everything?
so I go home. I immediately make a welfare check call from my car. The local authorities, they know who my brother is. They like, yeah, we're familiar with him, you know? So that's like at 5 or 6 on that Sunday. Another Sunday. It was weird. And I didn't get a call right away. So I thought, okay, maybe my dad was just angry and he left for the weekend and my brother's just spun and not giving me the right information. But then at 11:55 that evening, that night, on a Sunday night, my phone rings with a county number. Now, coming from a family of some law enforcement, some people incarcerated, that's either the jail or that's the police station.
Right. Something's up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I answer, and just matter of factly, this guy on the other end says, "This is Sergeant so-and-so. I'm just calling to let you know we found your father's body wrapped up inside of his travel trailer, and we're charging your brother with this homicide."
Damn. So the trailer you were walking around, your dad was wrapped up in there.
Wrapped up in there and put under a mattress.
Oh, like your brother, man. I mean, it sounds like he probably had some mental stuff going on. And then with the drugs on top of it, he couldn't hold it together. It sounds like. Let me ask you this, though. Do you feel like your brother is where he belongs?
See, that's a very difficult question for me. He is my brother still. He took away one of the most precious things to me, my father, and it ruined our family. But I have a difficult time completely Xing him out of my memory and my heart. Now, safety wise, yes, probably where he should be, right?
Yeah, that's more along the lines of what I meant. Like, I know, like, I don't have any relatives like that, but I know there's like, once you love somebody and you really love them, it's kind of hard, no matter, you always have a place in your heart for them. But as far as society as a whole, though, and every other family on the planet,
Yes.
like, I feel like he is where he belongs. How long did he get in prison?
So it basically came down to my father's body was in such poor condition. He had been dead for at least 10 days, they said. So that whole fishing trip, it never happened throughout that entire time, or part of the time. And the weather conditions were very hot. So you can imagine what I mean. So they could not, it came down to the DA telling me my father's neck was broken. That's how he died. The DA couldn't tell me whether it was broken in a struggle, a fight, or if he was strangled so violently that it broke.
Well, did he have like strangulation marks on him or anything?
It was too far. So had he been strangled, they would have charged him with first-degree murder because they couldn't prove it. It was voluntary manslaughter.
But you can also look at it like this too, is if he was strangled, that's like a personal like murder. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one thing to shoot somebody and 30 feet in front of you. It's another thing to be up on a motherfucker and
looking him in the eyes. Yeah, that's part of, what has really haunted me is imagining what was the last thing my dad saw and what was going through his mind.
Why do you think your brother did that?
Well, I think there's a couple things, like the drugs, his mental state. And if I'm being very honest, I just recently started, accepting the fact that, my dad was also a pretty violent guy and they were fighting. So I really don't know. Were they in an altercation, or did my brother just strangle him? Or did he strangle him during the, I don't know. I'll never know. My brother never made a statement, not to authorities, not to anyone.
Are you still in contact with your brother?
I wasn't for the first 3 years. And then he wrote me and he didn't go into detail. He just apologized and accepted everything that he had put me through. So I do have some contact now. It's limited, on my terms, but family members that are in contact with him.
For the people that are watching that are going through like some trauma in their own life, obviously not as serious as yours, but that at the same token, makes your advice really good. So for the people that are watching that are going through shit, like, how did you get through all that? Like, what was your method to keep pushing forward in life?
Well, I've got to be honest, the first 3 years, I didn't leave my house. I became a complete hermit. I was severely depressed. I was just trying to numb myself with anything and everything I could. I was suicidal. There's one day I begged my spouse to shoot me and put me out of my misery. I even said, I'll write the letter myself and say that I did it. Just please do it, because I couldn't bring myself to pull the trigger.
Damn, that's serious.
But I just, it's so weird. I started watching YouTube videos of people that were encouraging to others going through trauma and grief. And that's sort of where I started. I did have a foundation, in church. I'm a Christian, even though I struggle, with my own mental health and things like that. And I feel like that always grounded me. Even through that trauma, I was somehow centered and brought back from what I was going through. And then I have my kids, how could I give up when they're looking to me? How are we going to get through this, Mom? So I kept pushing forward until I could make a move and get out of that situation.
So, and then that's when you decided to create your own YouTube channel and kind of do your own thing?
It was actually my kids, my daughters, in fact, had encouraged me to do it and said, Mom, there's got to be people like you that have been through something like that need to know it's okay. It's okay to still love their loved one who's incarcerated and not feel guilty about it or shamed, because I had a lot of people doing that to me. My dad's entire side of the family cut me off.
I bet.
And but I have to live with myself, not them.
So how do the people find you on YouTube?
They can check me out at Convicted Hearts Jen Magana, and I've got a small channel right now, but I would love to continue telling stories, and I've started to do some interviews who have been through some traumatic events and come out the other side.
Well, that's what's up. And that's kind of why I started doing it. You know what I mean? So I think we're kind of in the same boat on that, but I appreciate you coming on the channel and, telling your story. It's obviously, a very deep and personal story. So I know that takes a lot of guts. So big salute to you for doing that.
Same to you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, not a problem. Anytime. If you're new and you're tuning in, this is the kind of stuff we talk about on this channel. I know it seems a little crazy, but this is the reality we live in. This is what people go through, and I'm going to bring it to you, and I'm going to bring it to you real, raw, and uncut. So if you like this type of content, hit that subscribe button and turn your post notifications on. So every time I do drop an episode, you can hear it first. And with that, it's DOC TV, and we're out.